Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. We are jumping into an episode today that I think is so important because I hear people talk about this a lot. And that's the fear of falling into old patterns where you do all this work to create new healthy habits and you start slipping backwards and it gets scary. And then what do? So, we're going to talk about that today. Before we do, I want to share something really exciting with all of you. So, my signature program is called the School of Self Mastery. The waitlist for that program is now open. So, that's a 12-week program and it launches in January. And it's designed to help you begin the new year feeling intentional, feeling aligned, feeling grounded, knowing fully who you are becoming and what steps you need to take to get there. So, this is for you if you are an entrepreneur or you are a professional, high achieving woman, especially if you are a woman of color and you have done many things, but you are still finding that no matter how much you do, how much you work on yourself, it never feels like there is enough time. You end the day every day with still a really long to do list and you feel exhausted, or you keep second guessing yourself. Or deep down, you know that you want a more peaceful and expansive life, one that's filled with ease, with confidence, and with fulfillment, because that is exactly what you're going to get. So, the School of Self Mastery is a comprehensive, not superficial at all, but really comprehensive deep dive where I will teach you the neuroscience, the emotional mastery, and the nervous system tools that you need so that you finally have more time, where you become the master of your time, the master of your calendar. And you can start spending that time doing what actually matters to you, whether that's doing more of what you love or just chilling out, just resting, just reading a book for fun if you want. You're also going to be able to finally overcome self doubt and imposter syndrome. And you're going to be able to walk into any room with this deep seated confidence, knowing that you belong. You're going to finally stop procrastinating and get more done in less time without stress or burnout. And you're going to feel calm and grounded no matter what is happening around you. So, after our time together, you are not only going to master time, you're going to also notice how much lighter you feel. Because in this work, you are going to begin healing old patterns and inherited dynamics that have quietly kept you stuck. For some of us, not so quiet. It's been very loud, but it has kept us stuck. And many of these patterns are rooted in ancestral and generational trauma. So, in this work together, we hold space for that healing. Part of my background as not just an educator, but also a healer with deep Indigenous roots and ancestral healing. And I bring all of those tools, all of my experience into this container to support you in really creating healthy habits that are going to lead you forward and healing the things that are no longer supporting us. So this isn't just about increasing your productivity, though that is a very clear and obvious byproduct because you do become much more efficient. You become much more effective at doing what you're doing. You start learning how to use your time the most efficiently, and you do get more time back. This is actually also very deep self-leadership work. This is the kind of transformation that when you do it, it ripples through every part of your life and it's sustainable. It's not something that you just get and forget. You get this and you live it and you become it. And this is who you are moving forward. It's a really powerful container that I put together. And I'm really excited to offer it to all of you. And because I am deeply committed to supporting every woman who joins. So if you've ever been in any of my containers, you know the kind of love and support you get from me. I am fully present and supportive to what it is that you need and ensure that you are growing and getting the results that you want. And I'm equally committed to doing that with this container. So this container is going to be kept small. So the January cohort will be intentionally small so that you get the attention, the safety, and the coaching that all of you desire and deserve. So the waitlist is now open. You can find the link in the show notes. We're going to open for enrollment in December, and we're going to go live and actively launch this experience, this program in January. I cannot wait to welcome you inside and guide you through this next chapter of your evolution. Okay, let's jump into the program today and what we are talking about. So again, today we're talking about what happens when we start slipping back. When we start fearing falling back into old patterns. You might know this feeling. Let's say that you've made some progress. You're doing something new. maybe something better, something different. Maybe you started exercising again, or you've committed to leading your team with more patience, more empathy, or you've launched a new program and then life happens. That maybe you get sick, maybe you start having to do a ton of travel, or you get really overwhelmed or busy. And suddenly that new pattern that you created, that you worked so hard to build, it starts to slip. And what starts to creep in? Self-doubt, a lot of stories, maybe a little voice that's saying, here we go again. I knew I couldn't keep this up. Or if this sounds familiar to you, I want you to know that you're not alone. In fact, I want to give you some real life examples of what I've seen in my coaching clients. So some of my coaching clients started going to the gym regularly. So they were athletes when they were younger, and then they fell off, for many, many years. And now they're committed to longevity and being healthy again. So they started going to the gym regularly again. But then they got sick and they missed a few days. And there goes that voice. I knew we couldn't do this. Or I had another client that was committed again to being healthy and lost a lot of weight. And then the holidays came around and she found herself eating more than usual. And then all of the guilt and negative self-talk showed up again for her. I had another client that was this incredible leader, but had this habit of like really pushing his team. And he wanted to lead in a way that was more heart-centered, more human and less reactive. And he was doing really good job. And then work got really busy and he snapped back into old habits. So if that is sounding familiar to any of you, all of these was the same thing. They all created these really powerful, beautiful new habits. And then they started sliding back. And that's where that little voice showed up again. So let's talk about why we fear falling back and what to do about it. So first, when we talk about why we fear this, I think it's important to start with the brain and start from a neuroscience perspective. And here's the thing. Your brain loves what is familiar, because what is familiar equals safety, because what is familiar is predictable. And our brain is here to do two things. It's here to keep us alive and do that as efficiently as possible. And when I say efficient, I mean energy efficient, conserving energy, whatever the brain doesn't have to do to think, whatever our body doesn't have to do to push hard. So every time you change a habit or a pattern, your brain and your body is actually working harder. This is literal. So what I mean by this is if you do functional MRI studies, what you will see when you're trying to create a new habit is your prefrontal cortex is lighting up. Because what's happening is it is using more glucose and more oxygen as it's starting to rewire neuronal connections. So creating new habits or doing something new and different takes much more work. So when you slip back into old behavior, your brain doesn't see that as a failure. In fact, it's like relief to your brain. Finally, we're back to what we know. We're back to known territory. And it's much more familiar for your brain. That's why falling into old patterns for your mind or your brain, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means your nervous system is doing what it's designed to do. Your nervous system is designed to conserve energy and protect you from uncertainty. But here is what gets a little tricky, because even though our nervous system is wired to do that, we are human beings, which means we make meaning out of everything. And the meaning that we make when we slip back is not, yes, that's what we're supposed to do. It's, oh, no, I'm failing, or I can never do this, or I can't be consistent, or I knew I couldn't do this. And that is self-judgment. And self-judgment activates the human stress response. And when the human stress response is activated, we have cortisol that spikes. And of course, our inner critic takes over and we start believing the narrative that we cannot trust ourselves to follow through. Now, this is so important because I'm going to say this again because I think it's important for you to see this. When we fall back into old patterns, it's the mind and body doing what it was designed to do. But because we make meaning out of it, we make it mean that we're failing. And as soon as we start making meaning out of it, that's when self-judgment gets activated and the stress response gets activated. And then the inner critic takes over and we start to believe the stories that we have made up. The stories are not true, but we start to believe them. And that is the fear underneath all of the stuff that's happening about missing a workout or snapping at your team. It's not about not trusting yourself to return to alignment. It's the fear that maybe this better version of you is not sustainable. And then again, for many of you listening who are high functioning or high achieving, that can feel really terrifying because so much of our identity is built around control and mastery and growth. And if we can't sustain these new habits, it makes us feel like failures. And The F word is one of the worst words for high achieving, high functioning people. So let's talk a little bit about this role of self-judgment here, because many of us grew up in cultures. Many of us, I think it's all of us. I think everyone listening here, you probably grew up in a home or a culture that really equates your self-worth with your performance. So the better you do, the more love you received as a kid. The straight A's you got, the more you received love, respect as a kid. And even now as an adult, the better you do, the more acknowledgement you get. So when we stumble, even if it's a tiny little setback, it feels more than just a tiny little stumble. It feels like a huge sense of self-betrayal, like we've betrayed ourselves. And I'm going to say something that's kind of obvious, even though we don't fully embody it. Growth is not linear. Many of you guys may have seen an image floating around, which is what we think growth is, which is like this straight line, down, up. We think growth is linear, but it's not. Growth is like this messy line where we're often falling and coming back and getting up again and falling again and continuing to go. It's super messy in the middle. And behavioral psychology tells us that habit formation follows this pattern of progress, plateau, relapse. We progress again, then we plateau, and then we have a relapse, and then we keep going. And what defines our success is not the relapsing. What defines our success is the fact that we commit to keep going. So there was research that was done, published in the European Journal of Social Psychology, that found that it takes an average of 66 days to form a complex new habit. Okay, so complex new habit versus a simple new habit. What's the difference? A simple new habit in the literature will take anywhere from 14 to 21 days. A simple new habit is something like, let's say you put your shoes on, right shoe first, left shoe second. And now you're trying to change it to put on your left shoe first and then your right shoe. So that kind of simple new habit takes the brain about 21 days to rewire. But a complex new habit, that's like changing something uncomfortable because it's taking much more energy. Like now I'm committed to going to the gym every day, or now I'm committed to slowing down, in between meetings, or I'm committed to what's something that's actually really, really hard for, I know a lot of you listening. I'm committed to resting. Like when I'm done with my work, to just stopping work and just chilling out. I'm committed to that. That's really hard for people. Because our nervous system hasn't expanded to accept the fact that it's safe to rest. And so whenever we start trying to create a complex new habit, it's more likely for us to relapse and fail. And that's okay, because all we need to do is get up again and keep going. So relapsing again is not the failure. It's just part of the learning curve. Again, the most normal curve, the learning curve, the growth curve is progress, plateau, relapse. But then you progress again, plateau again, relapse again. Eventually, it's a growth upward, but there is a lot of messiness in the middle. However, our perfectionist brain, our perfectionist wiring interprets every little setback as evidence that we're not cut out for the change, that it's not going to work. And every time our perfectionist brain gets involved and the inner critic gets involved, it sets off our stress response and it makes it even harder for us to keep going. So one of the things we start to do to protect ourselves from this disappointment is deciding ahead of time that maybe we should just quit. Or maybe it wasn't going to work anyway, or maybe they were right, or why am I doing this anyway? And we make up excuses and we subtly start to stop trying. We sort of sabotage this new pattern before it has a chance to stick. So the other big piece here is agency. What do I mean by agency? Agency is the remembrance, the belief that you have choice, that you are in control. When we fear falling back, we often forget that we are still the ones steering the ship. Sometimes I hear my clients say, oh man, that stinks. I'll never get back up again. I'm like, why not? Don't you want to? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so just do it. You're still in control. You are the one steering the ship. Because we start to act like change is something that is happening to us instead of us being the person that is creating it. We are always at choice. We always have control. My client that was noticing that he was trying to create this new leadership habit, he got really upset with himself. He's like, man, I don't know what to do. It just feels so hard. I'm like, hold on a second. You're still the person in control, even when things get hard. You can still take a deep breath and slow down and notice and make a change. So the truth is, you are always one decision away, because you are at choice, from being back on track. You are not at the mercy of your patterns. Whenever we revert back to old patterns, all we get to do is notice that we reverted back and choose differently. We get to notice. We don't need to make a meaning out of it. We don't need to go into old stories. We could just notice that we went back and choose differently. So I'm going to walk you step by step for some things you can start doing when you do revert to old patterns on how you can give yourself what it is that you need so you can get up again and keep going. So the number one thing that I think is the most important thing here is giving yourself compassion. So self-compassion is like a silver bullet. It's incredible, and the data proves it. In fact, I did a whole episode 22, specifically on self-compassion. The leading researcher on self-compassion, Dr. Kristen Neff, she talks about how self-compassion activates the care system in our brain. And what that does is it releases this hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the same hormone that's released when a mother is bonding with her baby. And when that is released, it starts lowering our stress hormone. It lowers cortisol. And when that is released, we are able to meet ourselves with more kindness. And we are able to shift from, instead of this perceived threat, we're failing, we're never going to be able to do this, to a sense of safety. It allows our nervous system to expand. Every time you meet that fear with self-compassion, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's our relaxation response. And whenever we can relax into what we are experiencing, that relaxation actually is an expansion of our nervous system. And that makes it easier to re-engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that separates us from all other mammals, and be responsible for choices that we want to make, and for planning. So a simple way to do this is when you notice yourself slipping, and you catch yourself with the self-critical judgment saying things like, I knew I was never going to do this, or there I go again, or I blew it, or I'm such a failure. You want to pause and you want to say, okay, let me take a deep breath here. I slipped up. That's okay, because I'm human. I can begin again. All right, that's okay. It's okay that I did this. It's okay. I'm a human. I know growth is not linear. I can begin again. That by itself is a powerful statement that really opens up your mind, your body to possibility, and allows you to keep going. Number two, you want to start reframing what a setback means. So a setback never erases your progress. It never erases your progress. I think a lot of people think that if you are going to the gym every day for a month and then you have one day off, or like you forgot to go, or you got sick, or you didn't go for 2 or 3 days, that all of a sudden you're back to zero and you have to start from the beginning. But that is not what happens when we're building these habits. This is more like, okay, do you guys remember the game, Super Mario Brothers Nintendo 64 game from back in the day, where Mario, and this is like the original da 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 da. Okay, when Mario is going, what happens? If he dies, he has more lives. So he doesn't start back at the very beginning of level 1. He starts back wherever he is, level 3, 2, or whatever. That is exactly what happens when we have a setback. We don't go all the way back to the beginning. We just start again from where we were. That's exactly what's happening to our brain and body. So instead of thinking that you're going back to the beginning, just say, okay, this is just data. I get to just choose to start again. That's it. And this is probably, I have 2 more here, but this is one of the really, really important ones I really want to stick, which is I want you to focus on commitment. Focus on commitment. I did another entire podcast episode specifically on commitment instead of perfection, because perfection says whenever you have these setbacks, I'm never going to be good enough. I'll never be good enough until I'm perfect. And listen, if you are coming from that lack mentality, from that scarcity mentality, you're never going to be good enough, because if your thought is, I'll never be good enough, you're going to create a feeling of inadequacy or insufficiency, and you'll always be chasing something that you'll never be good at. That's what happens. That's that vicious cycle of perfection. But commitment, on the other hand, whenever you have a setback, commitment says, that's okay. I'm going to keep trying again and again because this matters to me. This is an attitude of, maybe relentless is not the right word, but that's kind of a word that's coming up for me. But it's just commitment. It's determination. And that right there, if you have the thought, I'm going to keep trying no matter what, because this really matters to me, because I matter, because my health matters, because my team matters. What feeling comes up for you? Probably like motivation, or Pride. Like I'm really proud of myself every time I keep going, every time I commit again, every time I try something hard, even though I had a setback. I'm so proud of myself. And that is what defines your growth. It's your commitment, not your perfection that defines your growth and success, but your commitment to keep going, even in the face of uncertainty or of setbacks. And that's really powerful stuff. And the last one I want to leave you with before we close is remember your agency. Remember that you are at choice. You always have choice. Even when you've fallen into old patterns, you can always choose differently. You are in control of your life. You are at choice. All right, friends, the next time you feel that, that fear rise up whenever you start a new habit and you get concerned that you're falling back, just remember that you get to trust yourself. Trust yourself to know that you are going to keep going, that you're going to lean into commitment, that you're going to be kind and compassionate to yourself. Remember that you are wiser. You have more tools now. You have tools of awareness so that you can keep going, creating the reality that you want to create, the future that you want, the habits that you want. All right, sweet friends. Thank you for being here with me today, and I will see you next week. Adios.